Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. We have a fascinating show with someone I have a lot of respect for. First of all, also an old friend of the show, and that's Amy Berger. She'll be joining us in just a moment to talk about carbohydrates, because I can honestly say I think when it comes to confusion about the human diet, all of it rests on carbohydrates, and we're going to get into this in detail in just a couple minutes. Of course, before we start, I have to give a shout out to our title sponsor, and that's Legendary Foods, makers of the Tasty Pastry. What was supposed to be the answer to the Pop-Tart has become so much more. I had some of their chocolate cake Tasty Pastries this weekend. I can't put them down. You will probably be the same way. Less than 1 gram of sugar, 4 to 5 net carbs. We're going to talk about net carbs today. And 20 grams of high-quality protein. They taste like cake. You will eat them because they taste like cake, not because they fit your dietary template. And so much so that your children will eat them. And kids will not eat healthy protein bars. They'll gag, they'll take a bite, they'll throw it at you, and that's it. You will have to wrestle these out of their hands because they taste so delicious. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary. Use the coupon code SHR10 today to save 10% off. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. And now, without further delay, bring my guest on. Amy Berger, how are you?
I'm good, Carl. How about you?
Nice to see you again. I said Amy doesn't age. She looks exactly like that last time she was on the show. How many years ago? I mean, a long time.
It's probably been at least 3 years. I don't know, maybe more.
Yeah, longer than that. Probably more like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So Amy does some amazing work in the nutritional arena. And one of the greatest things she does is she's not a zealot. She doesn't latch onto something and scream it from the rooftops because that will get her more followers, because that's what happens today out there. In this day and age, the more absurd the statement, the more followers you will get. But that is not, absurdity is not where the truth lies. And the truth is very important, as she and I were talking about a little while ago. So how are you doing, first of all? What's new and exciting? What's your greatest passion at this time in your life?
Ooh, well, my next book project that I'm working on is about thyroid. So I'm kind of this one particular project won't be about carbs and keto. It's thyroid. And I just in my clients, I see undiagnosed or improperly treated hypothyroidism all the time, and I'm just like desperate to get this information out there.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. The thyroid is a ductless gland, and what that means basically is that it has the greatest effect on the organs geographically closest to it, the brain and the heart, namely, and it seems to also be the most susceptible to modernity, the chemicals that are in our food and water. And to a great degree, we see hypothyroidism quite often observed when people make very strict dietary changes, right?
Yeah, yes.
So is this why you're like, wow, I got to figure out the thyroid to help these people truly take advantage of dietary changes?
That's part of it. It's more like, I get a lot of people coming to me with, if they're coming to me, they need help, right? If they didn't need extra help, they'd be off doing what they're doing and it would be working. And most of the time I'm talking about weight loss here. So people that are doing sort of all the right things and weight is not moving, they come to me for help. And very often we look at the food, we look at other things, and everything looks good. And it's like, okay, what is the problem here? And it's so often, suboptimal thyroid hormones. And sometimes changing your diet, changing your lifestyle will correct the thyroid problem. But very often you will not lose weight no matter how disciplined you are with your food and exercise if you've got like a thyroid roadblock. Because your whole metabolism is going to be slower, and you're just fighting upstream if your thyroid hormones are not where they need to be.
I want to stay here for a second. This is fascinating. So postmenopausal women, there are certain people out there, I won't name names, who give postmenopausal women a really hard time. Oh, the reason they don't lose weight is they're not moving enough. They're not eating less. They're just not sticking to the program. But the reality is, when a woman goes through menopause, progesterone, testosterone, and estradiol and estriol have a profound effect on thyroid hormone binding and the conversion of T4 to T3. Is this a big problem with postmenopausal women who want to lose weight?
Yes, but not just. I see it, I want to say across all ages, but I don't work with, children and adolescents. I see it women in their 20s, 30s. So it's not just, I think it gets worse after menopause, but certainly there's plenty of women in their 30s and 40s that have this problem. And the thing, the worst part of it, the reason I have to write my book is because so often these women are told your thyroid's normal. They suspect, based on their symptoms, they suspect there's a problem. They ask the doctor, hey, can you check my thyroid? And they check the 1 or 2 tests that look normal. But if you would do the comprehensive panel, there's like 4 or 5 or 6 other things that need to be measured. And if you would do that comprehensive panel, you would not only would you see the problem, sometimes even then your levels are normal, but as you know, you only too well, normal does not mean optimal. Just because you're normal on some labs, totally arbitrary reference range means squat when it comes to how well you feel as an individual human. And it kills me when, because I'm a nutritionist. I can't give people medication. I can't change their medication. So if I'm looking at stuff and I see an indication for thyroid medicine, all I can do is give them information. It's still a battle most of the time with the doctor to get the medicine or to even get the right testing.
And let's also remember, and we've talked about this in the context of testosterone and estrogen and progesterone, and let's talk about it for a second with the thyroid. And that is the epidemiological ranges that are established for lab assays are based on a sick population. And so if you're looking at sick people and going, what are their ranges? And then you come in and you say, oh, your ranges are fine because you're right in that same zone of all these sick people out there. That's not who they should be. They should be looking at people with optimally operating thyroid and saying, this is the target range we want people. Let's look at diabetics for a second. I'll show you the absurdity in how medicine handles this. If we look at the population, we'll probably find normal blood sugar is up in the 200s. Well, most people have blood sugar in the 200s. Let's make that's the zone. No, it's not. That's not. Right. Those people are broken metabolically already. I don't want to be up there with them.
Yeah. And not only that, in my opinion, the only thing worse than the conventional treatment and approach for type 2 diabetes is the conventional testing and approach to thyroid. It could give it a run for its money. I have many frustrations in this. One of the biggest is, how can a doctor look at numbers on a page and say there's nothing wrong with you when the living, breathing human sitting across from you in your office says, I'm constipated. I can't lose weight. I'm depressed. I have no sex drive. I'm cold all the time. My hair is falling out. My nails are breaking. They've got 15 out of 18 symptoms checking the boxes. How can you tell them there's nothing wrong? Why are we ignoring the presentation in favor of dots on a page, numbers on a page? I don't understand it.
It's medicine today. And you know what? And this is actually characteristic of a lot of things in life today. Last thing I want to say about thyroid hormone. Thyroid hormone is a mitochondrial uncoupler. It makes mitochondria work harder. A lot of people think, but I don't have energy. That may not be your thyroid. In fact, there's lots of reasons not to have energy. But if you take too high of a thyroid dose, which I've experimented with back in the day when I was thought myself an athlete and was using lots of drugs, it will actually make you more sluggish because your mitochondria has to work so much harder because of the uncoupling effect. Think about DNP. Thyroid hormone is nature's DNP. If you take a high dose of DNP, you don't even want to move. You just want to sit still because you just breathing, you're sweating. So that's another thing. Doctors prescribe thyroid hormone when people come in and say, I have no energy. And 99% of the time, it's not their thyroid that's causing that problem. They may have thyroid problems, but energy, lack of energy is never one of them. In fact, the lower your thyroid is, you probably feel more energetic. What do you think about that statement? I mean, obviously.
I kind of have to disagree. I think fatigue is definitely a hallmark of low thyroid. Not everyone has it, though. You can have a thyroid problem and not have fatigue. But you're definitely right. Fatigue can happen for a jillion reasons besides thyroid. And I think if you're over medicated on thyroid, like you're a little bit hyper, you will be buzzing. But if you go too far, you'll kind of overshoot. And then I think you will have the opposite reaction of like kind of shutting down. Yeah.
All right. So let's switch the topic now to carbohydrates. Just last night, my nephew said to me, because he's using my Fitness Pal, he's building an amazing physique for a 19-year-old, and he's really conscious about carbohydrates. And he says to me, I don't understand. If I'm eating this protein bar, and it says it has 24 grams of carbohydrates in it, and most of it is some sugar alcohol and then some fiber, should I be counting that? And I tried to explain to him, no impact, no metabolic impact, but maybe you can tell me, why do we ignore non-impact carbohydrates?
Well, not everybody should ignore them because non-impact is a real misnomer, I think, and this gets a lot of people into trouble. I have the great fortune to work with Dr. Eric Westman from Duke University, and his method for over 20 years has always been total carbohydrate. And it's because these sugar alcohols are sweetening agents that have less of an impact on blood sugar and insulin than regular sugar or corn syrup or agave, but they still have some effect. It's just less. And not so the different xylitol, maltitol, erythritol, they all have different glycemic impacts. But not only that, everybody's individual response varies. So like you and I or your nephew, whoever this was, could eat keto ice cream that has all that stuff in it. One person's blood sugar and insulin barely moves, and another, it might be almost as high as regular sugar. So it's I don't think I think some people can get away with counting those net carbs. They can subtract or ignore the fiber and all those sugar alcohols, especially if you're a 19-year-old boy who's working out a lot. There's a lot of other people who that gets them into a lot of trouble when they're eating the keto granola and the keto cereal, and they, like you said, it's 24, 25 grams total carbs, 2 or 3 net carbs. Some people can get away with that. A lot of people can't.
20 years ago, 20 years ago, I bought myself a glucometer because I wanted to see what happened when I ate certain foods, because I started to learn about stable insulin levels begets a leaner body. And so, I would eat a meal, and most people eat like the same 9 foods week in and week out. So once you zero those foods in, you're done. What about these continuous glucose monitors today on non-insulin resistant people? Are they a good tool for us to figure out our own metabolism?
That's a really good question. I have very mixed feelings about these CGMs, these continuous glucose monitors. I think it's perfectly reasonable to want to see how your body's reacting to things, but I've always joked, and it's not really a joke. I think you should have to sit through a 5-hour biochemistry lecture before you're allowed to use a CGM or a ketone meter, because people are going to see these numbers that they don't really understand, and they're going to freak out, or they're going to not worry about maybe things they should be concerned about. I think they can be very, very eye-opening, because you can probably identify problems before they get bad if your blood sugar is a lot higher than you thought it was. But I just think people need to understand that there's a lot of other things that affect blood sugar besides food. Some people, like if you do an intense workout, your blood sugar is going to go up. Some people even say a hot shower makes theirs go up a few points. Stress. So there's a lot of, and I just think, I have mixed feelings. I think they can be a very useful tool, but you really have to understand how to interpret the numbers you see.
Okay. Is it adequate just to focus on postprandial, not the shower and not the exercise, but I just ate a meal, and what happens in the next hour and a half is indicative of my body's ability to tolerate the glucose producing carbohydrates that I'm eating?
That I would agree with. I think that's probably, because if you want to test your reaction to certain foods, then I think that's a good way to go. But I also think, if you eat a healthy, whole food, whatever you want to call it, diet most of the time, every once in a while, you want to have the donut or have the bowl of spaghetti. I think, and your blood sugar is going to be 180, 190, whatever. I think that's okay once in a while. It's just not something you would want to do all the time. Like you were saying earlier, people like to take things to extremes all the time. And I just think, okay, your blood sugar went up really high. If you don't ever want to do that, you don't have to. But if once in a while, because the once in a while thing isn't what's making everybody sick these days. It's the fact that we're eating this stuff all day, every day. If we only ever had it on our birthday and Halloween and Christmas and Thanksgiving, that would be it. But we eat like it's Thanksgiving every day of the year. That's
Yeah. Joel Green and I did a show a couple years ago. I started digging into intermittent fasting. And I think time restricted feeding is a good thing if you don't go to extremes with it. I think that, assuming you don't have some therapeutic reasons, seizures, brain cancer, I think that a 16-hour window of not eating and an 8-hour window of eating, assuming that you don't go completely off the ranch in that 8 hours, like, I can eat anything, I'm just going to eat this chocolate pie today, I think what you break your fast with is very important. But with that being the case, we started to examine if there were potential negative effects from too much fasting, too often, too long. And in fact, we did find research that shows that it can actually alter the germline of both father and mother who are about to have children. Now, think about this. We know that obese parents give birth to obese children. What happens if people fast constantly and, they happen to get pregnant? There were changes, epigenetic changes, transgenerational epigenetic changes that show that child may have some metabolic challenges because the parents are sending signals to build a fetus that's going to come into a world of scarcity. So build that fetus ready to, like, everything it eats has to become maybe fat, not as muscle, because muscle is metabolic. And so, we forget that food is medicine. People love to say that. Aristotle, Socrates said, food is your medicine. Yeah. Well, if you overdose on something, you're going to kill yourself. And the same goes true with food. Talk about your opinion of time-restricted fasting, where it fits, where it doesn't.
Yeah, I think, like we were talking before we started recording, and anything can be taken to extremes. Just because eating all day nonstop is not good doesn't mean that never eating ever is better or is good. I do think there's a lot of good reasons to put time restraints around when you eat, especially like if you're someone that just otherwise would snack all day, be reaching for this and that. Just having those like guardrails, I think, can help. But I think it leads people to become scared of, like, let's say your schedule throws you a curveball, something happened and you can't eat at the time you were supposed to eat, or you end up having to eat some other time. People get really worried, like this is going to be somehow damaging or harmful. And I think in intermittent fasting, or like anything, it's okay to mix it up. You don't have to have the exact same window every day. I think
Right.
the overarching point is to spend some period of time not eating, whether it's 8, 10, 16 hours, whether it's from, noon to 8 p.m., whatever it is. The point is just to spend some period of time. And I also think this is something we don't discuss enough. A lot of the benefit that you get from doing that, and I much prefer the phrase time restricted eating,
Yeah.
even if it's the same thing.
It's zealot like.
Yeah, but intermittent fasting, if you're eating 1 or 2 meals a day, is that fasting? Let's just call you're putting a restriction on the time when you eat. So I know it's just semantics, but a lot of the benefit is just spending more time with your blood sugar low to normal, insulin low to normal, in that fat burning state. And you're getting that on a low carb or ketogenic diet to begin with, even when you are eating. So there isn't a whole lot of research as to what added benefit that time restriction gives you on top of a ketogenic diet. And I mean a good, true, well formulated, like Dr. Finney would call it, ketogenic diet, not some like random internet craziness. And there may be some extra benefit, but I think you're already getting a lot of those metabolic benefits just by keeping your carbs low to begin with.
So, and I've said on this show for years now that doctors just looking up blood sugar is akin to me trying to look at my gas pedal's distance from the floorboard and assess how fast I'm going. And there's so many variables, like, am I going downhill? Am I going uphill? So I've called for years that doctors check both insulin and blood sugar, so I can say, oh my God, your pancreas is working at 100% duty cycle to keep you at that 80 milligrams of glucose.
Right.
Now we know that glucose number means nothing because you're going to tank and hit the wall eventually. What about glucagon? Should we also say, look, if we really want to know what's happening to someone metabolically as it relates to blood sugar and insulin, should we include glucagon into that equation too, to see what their liver is doing to help stabilize everything?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think I've heard, I'm not sure. I think glucagon is a lot more volatile, so I don't know if there's an easy way to measure it. I think for most people, probably the glucose and insulin are enough, unless if you want to look at maybe like a type 1 diabetes situation, or I once watched this documentary of a woman that had a glucagonoma, a glucagon secreting tumor.
Wow.
And so you never know, these crazy situations could come up. I don't know that measuring glucagon is going to add a whole lot to the picture.
Okay, that's fine.
It might, but I don't know.
So we are so far away from instinctive and intuitive eating. 40,000 years ago, we decided we're going to just grow stuff and keep animals, and we're never going to have to struggle for food again. And shortly thereafter, the marketing of food took over, which led to industry, which led to government intervention, because industry asked the government, hey, say this, say that, to a point now today where we don't know what's really good to eat and what's not good to eat. And that's led to a widespread orthorexia in our country. Whether you're a physically fit person who wants to see your abs, or you're just somebody who believes that you're doing the right thing for yourself and your family, everybody's afraid of carbs today. How did that happen? And how do we fix it?
Well, I don't think everybody's afraid of carbs. I think in our little bubble, people are. I think we've gone too far, like we do with everything. I think there are clearly people who do need to restrict carbohydrate. I mean, I don't think there's any arguing that. I think a low carb or ketogenic diet is amazingly therapeutic, but it would be stupid to say that, strawberries are poison or, potatoes cause diabetes when we've got healthy, robust people all over the world who eat these foods. And they're not, they don't have obesity, they don't have diabetes, they don't have metabolic syndrome. I think it's like, if you're in the hole, the thing you need to do to get yourself out of the hole, like going really, really low carb, is not necessarily what you have to do to keep yourself from falling in the hole to begin with.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah. You use the crutches until your leg heals, and then you throw the crutches away.
Right. Yeah. You don't wear the crutches forever. Exactly.
Ever, yeah. Right. Yeah. I want to take a quick commercial break. Those of you who are posting questions, we will get to every one of them towards the end of the show, I promise. And I want to take a quick commercial break. But before we do that, I want to promote a couple things. First of all, Amy's new book, which is End Your Carb Confusion, Lose Weight and Kill Cravings with a Diet You Can Stick to for Life. And someone once asked me, what's the best diet? And I've heard this before, so I'm repeating it, and it's the one that a person will stick to. So really, following a diet that you can do and stick to is probably the first most important thing of any diet you choose. If you go to shrnetwork.biz/end your carb confusion, you can learn more about the book. Also, there is an upcoming... So there is a website you can visit too, adaptyourlifeacademy.com. Tell the audience what that is, because I don't really have the answer.
That is a company that I work for, that we do online courses related to low carb and keto. We have a course coming up in June all about cholesterol and cardiovascular disease. We have courses coming in the future on like type 1 diabetes, all sorts of stuff. But we have, most of our stuff right now is low carb keto, and kind of how to do it effectively and safely without losing your mind.
Yeah, there you go. Adaptyourlifeacademy.com. Check that out. We're going to take one quick commercial break. Stay with us. When we come back, we're going to talk about sugar. Is it really as addictive as cocaine? I've never snorted sugar, but I snorted a lot of Coke when I was young. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
Being superhuman means being conscientious about the choices we make. White Oak Pastures is superhuman when it comes to raising livestock. They're committed to animal welfare, land regeneration, and rural revival. They responsibly manage the entire process from the pasture to your doorstep. High-quality, pasture-raised, great-tasting meat from a farm you can trust. Full nose-to-tail selections. They even have options for your pet. Go to shrnetwork.biz/white oak and use the code SUPERHUMAN to save 10% off your entire first order. I would easily say that I am the hugest proponent you will ever meet to doing anything that will improve the quality of my sleep. And that's because sleep is linked to just about every metabolic disorder we see in our population today. One of the easiest things you can do to improve the quality of your sleep is to get a pillow that can be shaped into the exact form factor that allows you to get your best night's sleep. And that is MyPillow. I've been sleeping with MyPillow for a few years now, and I can tell you that when I have to travel and stay in hotels, I don't get a good night's sleep because I don't have MyPillow with me. Right now, you can save up to 60% off of everything offered to improve the quality of your sleep at shrnetwork.biz/MyPillow when you use the code SHR. Or you can call toll-free 800 889-4938. And remember to use code SHR to save up to 60% off of everything at their website. If you've listened to Superhuman Radio for any length of time, you know I'm a big proponent of peptides. One of my favorites is GHKCU, the blue copper peptide. It has the ability to repair and regenerate more youthful expressions of skin cells, reversing the signs of aging. Restore Cell's Stem Cell Awakening Serum, along with their other products, contain potent formulations of blue copper peptide and only the highest quality organic ingredients. Superhuman Radio listeners can now save 25% site-wide. Buy their complete set and receive a free exfoliating cleanser. Go to shrnetwork.biz/blue and use the code SHR25. That's SHR25. Remodel your skin today. C60, also known as Buckminster fullerene, is the most powerful, most versatile antioxidant in the world. It's been shown in studies to double the lifespan of rodents. We all know the importance of taking antioxidants to slow aging, reduce inflammation, and improve mitochondrial function and energy production. But there are literally hundreds of antioxidants that would cost you thousands of dollars to take every day. I take one. I take C60 from C360 Health. Revive and Rejuvenate are two blends that harness the power of C60. Don't waste another minute. Go to shrnetwork.biz/revive and use the code SHR for 15% off and free shipping inside the United States today.
Dogs should be powered by fat and protein, not carbs. That's why Visionary Pet makes low-carb, ketogenic dog food for dogs of all breeds and life stages. From kibble to freeze-dried and even low-carb treats, all Visionary Pet recipes are very low-carb, ketogenic, and made with 100% real meat protein. Shop now and use code SHR for 20% off your first order today. Your dog deserves the lifelong benefits of optimal nutrition. Make the switch to Visionary and see why smart dogs eat low-carb.
Move over, superheroes. This is the Superhuman Channel.
Welcome back. We're talking to Amy Berger, and we're talking about nutrition. We're talking about carbohydrates. We're going to talk about sugar in a minute. So Lane Norton is someone who I love. He's been a longtime friend of the show. He was actually on the show the first time early in 2006, before he had his PhD, when he was an outstanding bodybuilder, and he was working in Dr. Don Lehman's lab up in University of Illinois, I believe it was. And I follow him. He tends to be a zealot. You know, he loves to punch people in their face and then see how they respond. And this morning, I think he said something incorrect. He talked about sugar. And you know, his belief is, look, if you're following your macros and your calories, it's a numbers game. You're going to lose weight. And so I guess a guy named Dr. Mark Hyman claimed that sugar causes cancer. And while I don't believe sugar causes cancer, I do think that we know enough, especially from the Keto Pet Sanctuary, which Ron and Shannon Penna ran, and actually the metabolic event that you go to really arose from the work at that clinic where they worked with these dogs, that if you suppress sugar, the availability of sugar, and quite frankly, a couple amino acids, leucine leucine, methionine, and glutamine, because those can feed certain cancers as well. Cancer is a brilliant genius cell that adapts and uses in excess everything that's good for healthy cells. And that's why it's hard to kill cancer without killing healthy cells. But Lane said there's no science that shows that, and that the Warburg effect has been disproven, which I didn't know that. I never heard that before. But what we learned at the Keto Pet Sanctuary was when you reduced all sugar in those dogs' diets, and kept their fat very high and kept their protein intake fairly low, that those tumors either stopped growing and went into suspended animation, or they got smaller. So I'm confused now. Does sugar feed cancers? Some, maybe not all, or does it not?
Well, I'm not a doctor, so I can only speak to the research that I've seen. I don't know that It surprises me to hear that the Warburg effect has been disproven. Maybe it's just been shown to not be the whole story. I mean, it is an actual thing that happens. As to whether or not it's the only thing going wrong in a cancer cell, I mean, you'll have to, I don't know if you've ever had Tom Seyfried on from Boston College. You'll have to have him on.
Nice. He's been on.
So,
nice. Yeah.
I mean, he's one of my go-to sort of experts for this stuff. I don't think we can say that sugar causes cancer, but I think it is safe. And again, I'm not a doctor, but my understanding, it is safe to say that sugar is, maybe not uniquely, but very powerfully good for fueling cancer. And not just so, it's this sort of double whammy, because the sugar gives it the fuel, or one of the fuels to grow, and insulin is giving the signal for it to do so. So you've got insulin giving it the stimulus to proliferate, and you've got the fuel in the form of glucose to make that happen. But like you said, it's not just glucose. There's amino acids. And are you aware of Dr. Sarah Hallberg and that loss? Do you know Sarah?
No.
So Sarah Hallberg was big with the Virta Health Company, and she did a very, very famous TED talk about reversing type 2 diabetes by ignoring the dietary guidelines. And she was very well known in the low carb community. She just recently passed away from lung cancer, and she was never a smoker. She was very fit, athletic, and she lost her life. And so I think sugar plays and insulin play a large role, but I wish that we could say, hey, ketogenic diets and fasting cure cancer. They do not. Nobody take that message away. I do think there is a role for a ketogenic diet and for restricting sugar and other sorts of interventions that can lower insulin and make hyperbaric oxygen is huge in this field. Like, that can help, but it's not going to be a slam dunk. I mean, I think research is ongoing. I saw a lot of promising research at that Metabolic Health Summit, but it's kind of like it's early days. Now, I think there's no reason to tell a cancer patient that they should just eat all the ice cream and junk they want just to keep weight on. I think there's other things. If you're concerned about cachexia, if you're concerned about wasting, you can get calories from things that are not sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that is a minefield, though. There's no harm in restricting sugar, and it might help. So why not?
And this is a good point. There are some cases of brain cancer where tumor reversal with keto. Yes.
Yeah, no, of course, there are definitely, but we can't. I don't ever want to overpromise, because this is such a broad issue.
What's his name? Andrew
Scarborough,
who's been on my show numerous times. From the first time that he had
him.
He'll tell you that it's not a cure, but it definitely saved his life. He will tell you that. But the other thing that I get tired of hearing is that sugar is addictive. I remember a meme going around where someone posted, sugar is as addictive as cocaine, to which in my most brash and politically incorrect way, I said, you've obviously never done cocaine. Girls are not doing sexual favors in the back of a club for a cookie. They're doing it for cocaine. And of course, I got a lot of heat for saying that. And I got heat for it the other day. And my argument is taking the word at its true meaning. In order for something to be addictive, it literally restructures the brain. The area of the brain susceptible to, let's say, opioids grows in size, density of receptors increase, and it causes this greater gravity for desire than just a passing habit, if you will. And sugar doesn't do that. Like, you can eat all the sugar in the world. It's not going to change the area of the brain, which everybody points at the reward area. The reward area of the brain lights up for 1,000 things. A good hug from someone you're crazy about. I mean, no one's saying that that's addictive, and God, I wish it was. The world would be a way better place if everybody just wanted to hug it out all the time, right? I'd be the first one to jump in. But what are your thoughts on this? Are we going too far by saying sugar is addictive?
That's a good question. I think there are some people, like doctors, physicians, who would say that it is, and they would say that it does alter the brain structure. Like there are people who making that argument. I think it probably depends on, like you said, how we're using the word addiction. Because to me, I take the simplest view and I think of it as continued use despite harm. You know it's hurting you, you know it's damaging you, and you can't stop. But I will agree with you. If you're sitting in a meeting and there's a big table and there's a big jar of M&Ms in the middle of the table, and you're just not going to have any. You decide, I'm at this meeting, I'm just not going to have the M&Ms. You're not going to sit there shaking and like not able to physically control yourself around those M&Ms. You might really want them, but you're just going to sit there and not have them. The same might not happen with an illicit drug. I think it really depends on how we talk about addiction. I think there are a lot of people who might feel addicted because when they try to stop, it's damn near impossible. It's so hard to stop that I must be addicted. Why? Like I can't stop doing this thing. And to me, it's irrelevant sort of what it's doing to the brain. But I understand if that's the academic definition of it, then it might not be addictive. It's just so habituated. But I just think of that continued use despite harm. You want to stop, you're trying to stop, and you can't.
That is part of that is one of the hallmarks of addiction, that you continue to do it even though it destroys your life, destroys your family, you end up homeless. Like nobody's doing that for M&Ms. And Taylor,
well, I agree with you, but the thing, that's because this stuff is dirt cheap.
Right.
And you can get it everywhere. It costs pennies and it's everywhere. And we can't say the same about coke. If cocaine was cheap and you could get it out of a vending machine, probably nobody would be robbing banks for that either.
Well,
and it's normalized. It's normalized. Not only is it normalized, it's encouraged. Oh, it's your birthday, have a cake. Oh, it's little Timmy's Halloween party. It's little this, it's big that. Like, oh, it's the church potluck. We encourage it.
Yes. No, I agree, but I don't think it's addictive. Taylor C. makes the point that you're making. He says that's because cookies are legal, and that's why girls aren't turning tricks for them. But I will say this. If we look at hunter-gatherer populations, intact hunter-gatherer populations that live in the jungles, 20% of their weekly calories come from honey, and honey is not marginally, but big time more sweet than table sugar, which makes honey the crack cocaine of sugars. And they're able to eat 20%. And now I know the argument, well, if they had beehives, then they'd eat it all the time, and they probably would. But I think that's an evolutionary holdover. I think that sugar was rapidly available energy when we spent all of our day looking for food and chewing food. And it was like, oh, this stuff is very valuable. This is like nutritional gold. And I think that our brain is wired that way to prefer it personally. But I could be wrong. Obviously. So getting back to carbohydrates, which is the topic at hand today. Low carbohydrate diets have been shown to make changes to the brain that make the brain appear more youthful. In people who have dementia, the ketogenic diet can help them return to better brain function. I think that along with a bunch of other lifestyle changes that Dr. Dale Bredesen exemplified in both of his studies and his books. So is it better to eat low carb?
Better is a loaded word. I think that to preserve healthy cognitive function, you want to eat and live in a way that maintains healthy blood sugar and insulin levels. And the amount of carbohydrate that any of us can eat and still do that is going to vary from person to person. Some people are going to have to go super, super low carb. Some people can kind of just do moderate carb. But like we were saying before, if you already have cognitive impairment or some kind of problem, the thing that you need is probably going to be a little more extreme than the thing to potentially prevent it from happening in the first place.
Yeah.
And we were saying earlier, with a couple of years ago, there were a few articles, even in the mainstream press, about links between high blood sugar and metabolic problems and Alzheimer's. They call it type 3 diabetes or diabetes of the brain. And it made kind of a splash and then it disappeared. You never hear about this. Why is it that a ketogenic diet would be good for cognition? Well, it's because you're giving ketones to a brain that is not able to properly metabolize glucose. That's the main problem in Alzheimer's.
Well, and then also the presence of ketones lowers insulin levels, and the lower insulin levels let the tissue resensitize. Thank God insulin sensitivity is reversible. I mean, if it wasn't, we'd be stuck in that zone forever. But just reducing the amount of blood sugar and reducing the amount of insulin reestablishes insulin sensitivity. So you're not going to be insulin insensitive forever. But you're right. Sometimes to have a therapeutic effect, you got to go deep into that hole. So what about fructose? Elaine Remains is channeling something I just saw recently. A doctor is saying fructose is poison, and I don't understand how it could be poison, because we've eaten fruit for millennia and somehow it didn't kill us. Just like sun is bad for you, nonsense. What do you think about that? Do you think that fructose is bad? Is there a reason it's bad?
So this is making a big splash right now. There's a doctor who is talking a lot more about fructose, and I think the dose is the poison. And this doctor, I don't know if I should name his name, but he himself has even said fruit is not the problem. Fruit is not even modern fruit is not really the problem. The problem is these high fructose corn syrup sweetened beverages, and the fact that because it's so cheap, we've got the corn syrup in everything, and that's a fructose load that we were never sort of expected to handle. I think it's just like glucose, just like anything. The dose is the poison. Fructose. I don't think there's anything inherently bad about it unless you go too much. It's just like omega-6, right? You were saying the zealotry. We see this with every stupid little molecule. Omega-6, this and that, the fructose, the goitrogens, the phytate. Like you're so deep in the weeds that people are missing the big picture. And a little. You don't have to avoid chicken if you're afraid of omega-6. Like that's not the problem. Even the modern factory farm chicken is and that's not the best way to go. But if you're worried about omega-6, that's not the biggest thing. Just like with the fructose, fruit, like if you're going to be terrified to eat raspberries because you're worried about fructose, we have a problem. Do you know what I mean? It just...
I know. This is what happens. Everything we latch onto, it's the one thing. Thinking that anything is the one thing is an insult to the complexity of the human body.
Yeah. So even if there is a mechanism, is that relevant to somebody eating minuscule amounts of it in the context of a varied diet?
Yeah. So in 2009, I used the term type 3 diabetes because I had a conversation with a neurosurgeon at Ruth Chris one night. And I said to him, have you seen some of the new research coming out about both dementia and Parkinson's disease? It's insulin resistance of the brain. And I called it type 3 diabetes, just like I don't know where that came from. And so Taylor C is saying, Carl said that years ago, poor guy can't. So I have nominated myself as the Rodney Dangerfield of health and fitness podcasting.
Right.
Because I talked about strength being a greater indicator of longevity and health span. In 2006, after the California VA study came out, where they compared leg strength of men over 20 years, and the ones who were the strongest at the beginning and during stayed alive, and the ones who were the weakest died. And now everybody, Dr. Peter Attia is talking about it.
I remember, Carl, I don't know, 10 years ago, you said muscle is metabolic currency. Go to the gym and make a deposit today. You said that exact line.
I actually said it during my very first shows because I had to close the show. I was on AM radio, so I had to have some sort of thing to say. And I said, and the other thing that I've been saying that I'm sure someone else will come up with and I won't get credit for is stronger is younger. If you're stronger this week than you were last week, you're younger. Like measure your youthfulness by your strength. But I've officially, and it's funny because I went to Richmond Hill High School and so did Rodney Dangerfield. So I guess that I'm destined to be that guy. Ron Penna told me something last time we were hanging out together that shocked me. Everybody came out against high fructose corn syrup. It's unbound fructose. It's this, it's that. And we demonized it, and they didn't get rid of it. They just call it other things like glucose fructose syrup and stuff like that. So it's still in your food. And he said to me, what people don't realize is that agave is worse than high fructose corn syrup when it comes to unbound fructose and higher degrees of fructose. And Whole Foods is like, oh, but it's not regular sugar, it's agave. Like it's good for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, agave is much, much higher. And I think I want to say it's like 90-something% fructose, but it might not be that high. It's high though.
Oh, no, it's high. It's really high. I think you're right. I think it's 90 or 95%. And it's better for you. And it turns out high fructose corn syrup is better for you than agave. But
even then, we're still talking about the dose. Even once in a while, you're having an agave thing, fine. But it's, a lot of vegans, especially because they can't have honey, a lot of their stuff has agave in it, I think. And so they're just inundating themselves with it all day, thinking it's healthy. But I could say the same thing for the people out there that legitimately require a gluten-free diet. There's all these gluten-free products out there that are even higher in much higher glycemic starch, because now you're using arrowroot flour and tapioca flour and cassava flour and all this stuff that your blood sugar is actually going to be higher than if you just ate the wheat. Now, I know they can't have wheat, but there's these health halos, right? These labels, gluten-free, small batch, organic, or even keto now, heaven help us. Keto is being completely corrupted. I'm eating my keto ice cream and my keto cereal and my keto brownie. Why am I not losing weight?
Right.
Well,
Yeah, but maybe eat real food. Okay, this is kind of late in the show, but it just goes to show you that this premise that sugar is poison and it's addictive is so powerful in our community. Now, don't get me wrong. Eating less sugar is good by me, but I don't shy. Whenever we go to Ruth Chris, I eat a whole piece of key lime pie, and I'm sure there's 60 grams of sugar in there. You know what? We have to stop demonizing macronutrients that have been in our diet for millions of years and blaming it for the problems that people have, which is moving too little and eating too much. Dr. Daniel Lieberman came on this show and exemplified the programming that we have genetically. We are genetically programmed to consume as much energy as possible and sit still as much as possible, because over 4 million years, that was our problem. The last 40,000 years, not so much. He said it best. He said if there were 2 coconut trees in the jungle and one had an escalator next to it, the Aborigines would start using the escalator. Why climb the tree and burn energy? We'll just ride up and get. So look, sugar is not poison. Period. No sugar is poison, and it's not addictive. We just talked about that. Perhaps KWAG is watching on YouTube, but it's not addictive. Go look at neuroscience about what addiction does physically to the brain, and then show me a study that shows that sugar does that.
I do want to say, though, even if it's not addictive and we're saying it's not poison, like I have to stand up for the people who really are better off avoiding it as much as possible, because there's some people that they're going to have one Hershey Kiss and before you know it, it's a 6-week bender of 300 grams of carbs a day. So there are people out there that can have one cookie and close the package. Most of us can't. Most of us, it's easier to have none than it is to eat in moderation, or like you said, go to the fancy restaurant, get the dessert, and do that once every 2 months. It's not something you're going to do every day.
Right.
But I really, whether it's addictive or not, there are some people who cannot control themselves, and
Yeah, they
you're
can't.
not going to reverse type 2 diabetes eating a lot of sugar.
Right.
So like you have to know yourself. Are you somebody that can have a small amount, or are you someone where a small amount is going to lead to a huge amount every day for 3 months?
No, I agree. Everybody's relationship with sugar is different, but understand it's not turning you into an addict. You're not, you have the control, but you want to relinquish it because you just want to keep eating it because it tastes so good. And that's really what it comes down to. I was a 330-pound fat guy. You think I ate a lot of sugar? Hell yeah. Do I eat a lot of sugar these days? No. And that's why I'm able to maintain my weight, because it's more important to me to be healthy and look good. I am vain. Than it is to eat that box of Oreo cookies. That's what it comes down to. Yeah. We have to take our last commercial break. We got lots of questions and comments. We'll go through each of them on the other side of the break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. If you'd like a shortcut to better sleep, more energy, and calmer, more stable moods, then you should make sure you're supplementing with magnesium daily. Let me tell you why. About 75% of people are magnesium deficient. This deficiency can lead to higher levels of anxiety, irritability, trouble sleeping, and low energy. It can even contribute to foot and leg cramps while you sleep. Magnesium Breakthrough by Bioptimizers is the single best magnesium supplement in the world. Simply take 2 capsules before you go to bed, and you'll be amazed by the improvements in your mood and energy levels, and how much more rested you feel when you wake up. I take Magnesium Breakthrough every night, and I sleep better because I use it. Go to magbreakthrough.com/SHR and use the code SHR10 during checkout to save 10% off and get free shipping. Check it out. Are you 35 or older? Every year after puberty, your growth hormone decreases sometimes by 50% by the age of 35, and it only keeps going down from there. This affects everything from making it harder to recover from workouts, sleep, and a general loss of a sense of well-being. It also affects your ability to get and stay lean. BioPro Plus is the first of its kind, 100% non-synthetic alternative to prescription synthetic growth hormone treatments. All the benefits without any of the needles or side effects, and 100% safe. Previously only available through doctors, you can go to shrnetwork.biz/biopro, that's BIOPRO, and use code SHR30 for $30 off today. Plant medicine has become all the rage for mental optimization. Now there's an ancient plant medicine rapidly growing in popularity that experts believe might just be the alcohol of the future. It's called True Kava. Kava is a natural food-grade elixir that has been used for over 3,000 years by South Pacific Islanders as safe, non-addictive alternative to drugs and alcohol. By naturally boosting the brain's main feel-good chemicals, dopamine, serotonin, and GABA, Kava provides you with both increased relaxation and mental clarity at the same time. True Kava is a new form of stabilized full-spectrum traditional Kava that is third-party lab tested for quality and safety. Go to shrnetwork.biz/True Kava, and that's TRUKAVA, all one word, and use code SHR for 25% off today. Most people have heard of phytoestrogens, but did you know there are beneficial phytoandrogens? The top source of these is pine pollen. It even contains trace amounts of testosterone and DHEA. If you're looking for a 100% natural testosterone booster, this is worth trying. Lots of men love it, and it even works for women. Lost Empire Herbs offers the highest quality wild harvested, non-irradiated pine pollen backed by a 365-day money-back guarantee. It works for you, or you don't have to pay for it with nothing to send back. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Lost Empire. Use code SHR. Get 15% off your order today. Remember those rectangular toaster pastries you used to love when you were a kid? Well, Legendary Foods has just made them better. The new cake-style tasty pastry is like nothing you've ever had before. With 20 grams of high-quality protein and less than 1 gram of sugar, you'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off your purchase of tasty pastries. Now available in cookies and cream, red velvet cake, birthday cake, blueberry, strawberry, brown sugar cinnamon, and hot fudge sundae. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use code SHR10 today.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. Don't hate us because we feel good.
If you want to develop a healthy relationship with carbohydrates. Go to shrnetwork.biz/end your carb confusion today and get the book, End Your Carb Confusion. Lose weight, kill cravings with a diet that you can stick to for the rest of your life. And that's probably the single most important thing about any diet, and that is that you can do it. Lots of people start diets and give up, switch to this diet, switch to that diet, never see any results. You got to do something that you can do day in and day out, because forget about what the magazines tell you. It takes months and years to get to the point of being truly healthy. You can't fake it. I got up to 330 pounds, but it took me probably about 15 years to get there. And the idea that I was going to follow some fad diet, take some fad fat burners, and look great in 6 months is absurd. And it's why people give up, because they have unrealistic expectations. It took you 15 years to get fat and unhealthy, and you think you're going to fix it in 6 months? That's just very, very naive. So there you go. Let's work through these. Some of these are good questions. There was one about goitogenic foods when we were talking about, let's see, I'm trying to find it here. Yeah. And this one comes from Craig Hollander. He said, is this the one? Yeah. He talks about oxalates, and he also talks about goitogenic foods, damaging the thyroid, foods that they include fruit, rhubarb, kiwis, dates. But isn't this the same thing we're talking about sugar? Like if you have a kiwi, if you have like I love broccoli. I eat broccoli probably 3 times a week, but I don't think that's going to affect my thyroid at that level. I mean, what about goitogenic foods? How worried should we be about them when it comes to the thyroid?
I think it is the dose makes the poison. I've actually read a couple of published papers where people induced hypothyroidism, but they were like downing kale, raw kale smoothies daily for weeks on end. I think a serving here and there of cooked, especially cooked cruciferous vegetables are really not gonna induce hypothyroidism in any of those goitrogenic foods.
Those questions we already covered. Elaine Remain says that she's following. Brad was on my show. Brad Marshall, Fire in a Bottle. His whole thing is puffers rather than glucose. What do you think about polyunsaturated fatty acids? Do you feel that they are not good for the human body?
I have mixed feelings. I'm kind of a contrarian here in that, like, I don't use a lot of them just because I prefer the flavor of tallow and bacon fat and lard and butter for cooking. But all I can say is, to whatever extent these polyunsaturated fats might be harmful, we've had thousands upon thousands of people lose weight and reverse diabetes, reverse all sorts of health problems with eating regular supermarket ranch dressing, regular, supermarket blue cheese dressing. Like this is kind of a new thing in the low carb world, this fear of the vegetable oils. And I'm not saying they're health foods, but I know that people can have massive improvements in health without deliberately avoiding those things. Okay. And they might be reducing consumption just by way of cutting the carbs, because if you're not having the carbs, you're not going to have the soybean oil in the frosting and the cookies and the pastries and all that stuff. But I just know that we can, you can have massive improvements in health without specifically targeting those fats.
Okay. Craig also put up a quote about oncology and the Wahlberg effect, that it is still used, and and really what Wahlberg found out was how to detect cancer cells, because they consume about 200 times more glucose than healthy cells. And so when you radioisotope tag sugar and give it to somebody, you can literally use a CT scan, I guess it is, and follow the sugar right to the tumor cells. That's what, now, a lot of people think, including myself, that he also found a way to perhaps take a therapeutic approach to killing cancer cells if those cancer cells have not mutated to want some other substrate besides glucose. But yeah, I didn't think it had been disproven. And I don't know what
I think it is.
And in Lane's defense, he put sources for everything, and I didn't take time to go read the sources. So, let's see what else here do we have. That's more Brad Morrison stuff.
I'm glad you've had Tom Seyfried on, though. He's just fascinating. I mean, the research he's doing is phenomenal, I think.
You know, one of the most impressive things that he did was to take the mitochondria out of a cancer cell and put it in a healthy cell, and take a healthy mitochondria and put it in a cancer cell. And as you would expect, if in fact it is the mitochondria that goes bad first, those cells change their state just because the mitochondria was exchanged. And that, to me, that's so undeniable that I don't understand how the oncology community didn't go, you know, we've been barking up the, like, if it's truly about saving lives and not just about saving the value of your work, why did anyone ignore that?
I know the exact study you're talking about. I can see the picture of it very clearly in my mind, and it's hard to say why this isn't getting more press. And like, even I feel like what I said before might be, maybe Lane was saying, or maybe he said it was disproved. I think the Warburg effect is not disproved, but it's maybe not the whole story. Just like with insulin, we know chronically high insulin does mess you up metabolically, but maybe there's other things too. And I know Lane really takes Gary Taubes to task all the time, because Gary, the insulin theory, everything is insulin. Well, there's other stuff going on too. That doesn't mean that insulin is irrelevant. It just means it's not the whole story.
Right.
And I feel like that Warburg effect in the cancer is probably the same thing. It's not irrelevant. It's just maybe not the complete picture.
Thank you, Sean Watson. He said Superhuman Radio is always 10 years ahead. I know there's other questions here. As far as today, I recently, a couple years ago, I said, if you're taking anti-aging advice from a 28-year-old, you're stupid. And then I said, and this one actually lost me some friends within the clinical arena. I said, if the person who's telling you about anti-aging isn't at least 60 years old, don't listen to them. Because I can tell you, I was squatting 700 pounds up till when I was 57. It was like something happened. Muscles, I tore my tricep muscle, had to have it reattached, 3 hamstring, 2 hamstring on this side. I tore the outer bicep head. It's all the way down here. All that happened between like 57 and 60. It was like, once I turned 60, I was like, all of a sudden I became fragile. I'm like, I'm breaking stuff. And when you listen to these young guys and gals talk about stuff about health span and lifespan, they don't know anything about it. They haven't aged long enough to see what happens to your body when you get older.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, I lost a lot of friends on that one. Somebody's wife came after me, and one of the doctor's wives came after me because her husband wasn't 60 yet. Carl, what do you suggest to people who are sick and super weak and can't exercise? Is there any secret type of exercise that weak, pained people can do? Well, I live with chronic pain. My legs, my hips, really, not my hips, my gluteus minimus area. I live with chronic pain. But what I would say to you, whoever you are, is start where you are. If all you can do is stand during the commercials of your favorite shows, start there and stand for every show. And then remember the progressive overload. That's what makes you stronger. Then you get to a point where maybe you can just walk around the sofa that you're sitting on during the commercials. Then maybe you'll get to the point where you can walk around the room during the commercials. Then at some point in time, maybe you'll venture outside and say, well, I'm going to walk 10 minutes in that direction and 10 minutes home. But you start where you are. You start with what you can do. The problem is, and I'm guilty of this because I have a big ego. Like, I want to be able to squat and deadlift like I used to, but I can't right now. So what can I do? And that's what I focus on. But remembering to make progress part of the equation. Start where you are, do what you can, and then gently start to do a little bit more. That's it. Boy, we have a lot going on here. I don't think I can get all of these. She's super in pain and weak right now. If you can stand during the commercials of your favorite shows, maybe watch this podcast while you're standing for the whole thing. That's a long time. It's an hour. I mean, just start there. Start where you can, do what you can, and slowly progress. That's it. And you will, in a year or two, you'll be a lot stronger than you are right now. What do you think?
I would say I'm the physical, exercise aspect is not my expertise. And I don't mean to sound like a keto zealot, but really ketogenic diets, not just low carb, truly therapeutic ketogenic diets are pretty well known for increasing energy levels. Joint pain tends to go away. So even, I don't know if this person is overweight or not, even if you're carrying a lot of excess weight, keto tends to make joint pain much, much better, even before you lose any weight. So that might help. But I mean, if there's other reasons, B12 deficiency can cause fatigue, like investigate if there's reasons why you're feeling so awful that you can correct totally apart from exercise.
Where are you on exogenous ketone use?
I think they have a role particularly for things like neurodegenerative, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS possibly. I don't think they're really a tool for weight loss or reversing metabolic syndrome. I think you can do that just fine with the food alone.
Let's plug your book one more time. So I'm going to put this up here. If you're confused about carbohydrates, if you're not, your diet isn't working for you, this is where to go. shrnetwork.biz end your end your carb confusion. Buy the book. I'm going to promise you something about this book. This book is a level-headed approach to fixing your diet. There's no zealotry in this book. If you're looking for something magical, then you may not be satisfied with this book, because quite often the magic is doing the simple things. You said something a little while ago that Ron Penna taught me. He said, often the diet that works for you has nothing to do with what you started eating. It has to do with what you stopped eating. And a lot of times removing things from your diet, I can completely endorse the idea that the pain goes away when you stop eating carbohydrates. And I'm not going to say why. I know that there was a study done years ago that we talked about on the show that showed that of all the three macronutrients, carbohydrates, fat, and protein, that carbohydrates were the only ones that caused an elevation in specific inflammatory markers. I don't know why. Does that mean carbs are bad for you? I don't know. There's a lot of people out there that can eat birthday cake all day long and they don't ever have any joint pain. Right. So again, the other thing is, remember, all of this is individualized. Supplementation, medicine in general, and diet. Some people can go on a diet and they say, my God, it changed my life. You or I go on that same diet and it's like, God, I feel disgusting all the time. So don't give up until you find what works for you. That's the most important thing. And keep trying things until you find what works for you. What do you think? Yeah,
I think, but be careful where you're getting information from. Try to find reputable sources. Like there's a lot of craziness on the internet now, and I think you want to go with someone that has a track record of good results.
Yeah, follow Amy, because in all the years I've known her, she's never taken the easy way out and become a zealot and promoted some absurdity because people would go, oh, that must be the answer. When you promote something absurd, people are so desperate. They think that's the one thing I've never tried. I've never thought of that. That must be it. And they flock to you. Yeah. And then that fad disappears a year or two later anyway. So, Amy, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It was great to see you again.
Yeah, and we'll definitely have you back on again. Okay.
All right. Take care.
Bye. And that's it for today, folks. Don't forget, share the show. You never know whose life you're going to change when you share a show. It's very simple. There's a share button on every platform, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Facebook. We're even on Twitter now, although we have no followers on Twitter at all. I don't think, at least. I don't know. It's a very noisy platform. It's hard to get attention. But with that being said, you may share today's show and someone will listen to it and take a couple of these steps, and all of a sudden their life will change. And if just one person take steps that change their lives for the better, then I've done my job. Because I've been talking to the Pope. I'm trying to get into heaven. Nah, I don't believe in heaven. All right, look, take care. We'll see everybody tomorrow with more Superhuman Radio. Thank you for being here today.
Move over, superheroes. This is the Superhuman Channel.